What up, gamers? I'm Jason.
I'm Julie.
And today on Dice and Dragons, we've decided to take one of our recent episodes of What's on Our Table and turn it into something that you guys really like, actually. So we got some great feedback on our first episode of 3 Ups and 2 Downs, so we decided to keep it going. So we will be diving into mind management as our next game, but that is a lot more involved than I thought it was going to be. So in the interim, we're going to talk about some of the lighter deck building games in our collection, do some comparing and contrasting of 3 games that are similar in styles but have some significant differences, and I'll let Julie tell you what they are.
So we've got Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle, cooperative deck building game. We've got Clank. Which one did you put out? The original?
The original, because I didn't think you want to talk about Clank in space.
No. And one of my favorite, Legendary.
Yes, and we will be talking about the Legendary series as a whole, including encounters, but we're just using the one that got us started with the series as the placeholder. So this video will be divided up into a couple different segments. I don't know what game we're going to start with. I'm going to let Julie direct us. And on that note, just to be clear, there's no direction here. This is a conversation, and we do not have a script. So if this is not the style of video that you like, well, sorry that we're not for you. Just wanted to be clear on it. Julie, tell me where I'm going, what we're discussing.
I think we'll start with the one in front of me.
All right, so this is 3 Ups, 2 Downs. So we're going to start with the positives, and we have talked about these games a lot. Down below in the video description later, you'll be able to check out the link to the reviews that we have of the games. So we might be similar, we might not be. Who knows where we're going? Take it away.
So what one of the things I really like about this is it's very much like you're living in the IP. You are definitely Harry Potter and or his friends, and you're going through, because you've got the 7 different years and you're really progressing through it, and it really does it very well. Does that part very well.
Yeah, I really like that. This is probably one of the best use of IPs, and the way that the 7 years progress, that progression through your character, even as the difficulty progresses, does make the game very accessible to a lot of different ages. And we've played it with a bunch of different gamers, different style of gamers, and we've yet to find people that don't enjoy it. Now, the game does have some flaws, but we're not there yet. So we do agree on number 1. So that's our first up.
Well, I was going to say my second up is the one you just talked about. I love the fact that pretty much anybody can play this. We've played it with my parents. We've played it with people that are kind of into gaming. And we've played it with people who really do game. So to me, that makes it even more fun, because the more different people you can share a game with, the more fun I think it is.
All right, so we've got 2 ups, and the third is...
I love the upgradability of this. I mean, there's a lot of cards to add to it, and that might lead to, we already know what Jason's negative is with this one. But there's a lot of different upgrades, and there's a lot of cool stuff that you can get.
And the expansions.
Yeah.
So, very well done. I have to say that the game is very unique. Each of the expansions is unique, and they had a different experience without tarnishing the original experience. It's still very easy to go back and just play that core original game if you so choose.
Well, do you have a different up?
No, I think you pretty much nailed it. Like, this is a game that we've played a lot of. We played all the expansions, and I think our opinions on the game have really kind of gelled together. Legendary, we might get a little bit more differences because there's legendary encounters, but with this one, I think we're going in the same direction.
Okay, well, the definite negative is, I don't think Jason's going to argue with me. I'm not going to argue with him. It's the giant stack of cards that you end up getting, where we've ended up house ruling, putting some of those cards in, because you can play, when we have played for hours, barely staying alive, just managing to stick it in, just waiting for the card you need.
And we looked through the deck, and we were probably about 50 cards away from getting a single one of the cards that we needed. So that is a real issue, is the way the game incorporates some of those elements across the 7 years. The addition of rules to the game does not necessarily match the subtraction of cards from the game, because you still have characters from year 1 when you're in year 7. And that may make sense for some of the cards, but not for a lot of them. And then That's the other negative that I was going to say is the length of time that it takes to play this game. It can go very smooth and very quickly. Other years, depending on the way the cards are falling, it can take hours. So you never know what you're going to get. Now, we found it just to be a lot easier to just sometimes, deal with the randomness of just straight up reset because we're not in the mood for a long game. The villains that you get at the start can really set the tone of the game as well. So that randomness really affecting the playtime is a huge down. Those are the two biggest downs that I have for the game. One of the reasons why it has yet to make it onto our top 10 list, at least the channel's collective top 10 list.
Yeah, because I think it's been on mine a few times.
Yeah, it's been on yours a few times. And on that note, I think we've talked enough about our first game, Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle. We're going to take a quick break. Julie, tell our viewers where we're going next.
We're going to Clank.
All right. Stay right here. And we're back, and we're taking a look at Clank with our 3 ups and 2 downs. Now, this one hasn't hit the table in a little while, but we played it a lot. We've got some great memories of the game. It's one of the few competitive games we had at the start that Julie was like, this is not going anywhere. You're making sure that this sticks around.
Well, this was one of the first deck building games, really, that you introduced me to, I believe.
Well, we started with Legendary, but this is the first competitive one that I introduced you to.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is one of the first competitive games that we could play where I could play with you and not want to fight with you for 3 days afterwards.
She's very competitive.
And you are very competitive, too.
Yes, but you take losing personally.
I'm not a good loser. I am a very bad loser. I know it. I don't like playing competitive games with Jason. I've said it. This is not new if you've been watching the channel.
Yes, but we have found a nice fit with games like Wingspan, Clank,
yeah,
Tapestry.
So this Clank, there are other Clanks that are a little bit more annoying that I didn't enjoy quite as much. There's a water one that I didn't mind. Clank in Space, not so much.
Well, a lot of the ones like the water one and stuff are expansions for this game, so they're elements that you can play with or choose not to play with if you haven't added them to your collection.
Now, and I'll bring it up again, my mother watches most of our videos and she's very unhappy that I bring it up again, but I am still surprised that, my own mother banished me to the dragon in this and basically
fed her to the dragon.
She claims she didn't know what she was doing. But, so, I mean, and Jason's done that before, too.
It's a valid strategy in the game. So
It is, and it's one of the reasons there are more games that we've played now that are competitive. I've been less enthused to bring this back to the table. So I guess call that a negative. So how many positives? Have we come up with any positives?
No, we started right on the negative, so you kind of mess up the theme of the video, so...
That's okay. We did one. We started with 1 down. The positive was, it is. I did mention one of the positives. One of the positive is it's not in your face. It is a game that you can play. You play your own game. You basically are trying to achieve your objective, and you don't really have to worry about what the other person is doing unless they're running back to the surface and you're still at the bottom.
And that is with the core game of Clank. Now, some of the expansions do change that up a little bit, but in terms of the negative player interaction, there's a lot less in Clank than there is in, for say, Clank in Space. Now, we do have all the expansions for Clank. We have not played all of them, so I can't tell you about some of the others, but the ones that we have played has changed it up, and it has never really changed the feel. There's more like a couple of little things that you can do to slow someone down, maybe swap out one of the cards that they wanted to get, move a couple of things around on the board to make it easier for you to get them and not the other players, whereas in Clank in Space you can completely lock players out of certain aspects of the game.
I think the other positive for me on this one is that there's many different ways that you can play this game, and sometimes it'll work and sometimes it won't.
Yeah, you can have decks with like no movement, but lots of teleport depending on the cards that you get, so you don't need to move around. You can go a lot of different ways. You can try to race into the dungeon and run all the way back out as fast as you can. That might get you the win, might get you the loss. It's going to all depend on quite a few different things, such as when the dragon's going to finally, destroy everybody.
So why don't you come up with the third positive on this one?
So the third positive I have to say is the board and how the board makes this more than just a regular deck building game. The board and your figure being able to move down into the dungeon and also having the core mechanics of a deck building game with the added aspect of the board was something that was relatively new at the time this came out, and it just made the game feel very different. And we like deck building games. I think maybe it's because of Clank. Competitive deck building games with boards do very well with us because we have Lost Ruins of Arnak, but you can argue that's a little bit more worker placement. Then we also have Dune, which is a game that you really didn't think you were going to like, but Dune Imperium went over a lot better, and that is a very much high conflict game, more than you thought you would like it.
Yeah, probably not my favorite, not as much as you like it, but yeah.
Yes, I was quite surprised when she won the game. She goes, that was a lot more fun than I thought. We should play it again.
Because I won the game.
Not just because she won, she liked the mechanics. She did lose very badly to me once, but she also was like, okay, that was not as fun, but I still like this game. And just a note, the reason why we're talking about Dune, same designer of Clank. Wonder why. So there we've got the 3 ups. We did one of the downs. And what would be your second down for this, Julie?
It's not, I don't find, I mean, yes, it is it's not the best deck builder in the sense of what you're building. I think there's others that you can build your deck a little bit more effectively, I think.
So we talked about Dune, and I think this relates a little bit to this game specifically because when you're playing a game like Dune Imperium, there's a lot of other things on the board, but your deck doesn't have to be the strongest, whereas the deck is the core driving mechanic of this game, and the cards can definitely let you down. You can get bogged down to a slow start. And I don't feel like with the core game, at least, that you have necessarily the best starting hand to try to compensate for some really bad draws or just, I really need movement. Damn it, the other player bought the movement card.
Yeah.
So I have to agree with you. I don't think the deck building in the core game is necessarily the strongest due to randomness. And I think that's an issue with a lot of deck builders is randomness. But it's a minor complaint, I say, with this one, whereas with Harry Potter, you can take a 45-minute game and turn it into 6 hours. So there you go.
So I think that about sums it up for Clank.
All right, and now we're going to be moving on to Legendary. We've got Marvel Studios in front of us, but as I said, we're going to talk about the whole system because we've got Buffy, we've got a whole bunch of other ones in the collection as well.
X-Files.
Yeah. So keep it right here. We'll be back in a flash. So Julie, we were talking off camera how you want me to start some of the positives more, but this one is Legendary, so for the future video, I promise I'll start one up, but for this one, I mean, this is really a game in your top 10. This might still be in your top 10. If we had a game of top 10 competitive games, this may be in your top 10, so,
Well, I love Legendary as a game system. I mean, that's really where I discovered, I think, first of all, I discovered deck builders, and I realized that I really enjoyed them. It was,
You did not discover deck builders from this. The first one is a game that shall not be named. That's no longer in our collection, and it's the first ever video that we did. With Sam.
Scott Pilgrim?
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't. That did not. That's why it doesn't count, because that one would have taught me that I hate deck builders. This one, I think one of the great things about Legendary, I'm going to say, I think my favorite thing about Legendary is the IPs that it uses. I mean, for me, it made it accessible, made it fun. We were in the middle of, devouring every single new Marvel Studios movie that came out. So for me, this made it even more fun. And then you realized that, and then you got me the X-Files. Well, I don't know what order, but you got me the X-Files one. I think you got me Buffy, but I
did, but I think I just bought Buffy because it was on a really good deal. And then I got Big Trouble in Little China, and we've got Firefly, so we've got 4 different games. And I'm going to actually accentuate her up because she's talking about the IPs, but I think what she's really talking about is also like just the flexibility of the core game system. Like, it's adapted to the IP. It works well with everything. It plays well. It's fun. Like, we've got Big Trouble in Little China, which is a little bit more head-to-head. You've got Legendary Encounters, which does things a little differently. And you've got, like, the episode system with X-Files, which really makes it feel like the IP of X-Files. You're going in Firefly, you're going through the stories, and they've added the whole Firefly ship that you've got to manage your ship. But it's all using the same core mechanics of the Legendary game system, which I think is just absolutely fantastic. We actually have Alien. The Matrix is coming out at some point, so we love the Matrix. We're probably going to get that as well. And that system is just so flexible that it just works with almost any IP. And that's one of the things that's really impressive about it.
So for me, number 2 is that system is so easy to teach anybody. And it's still fun. It doesn't matter if you're an experienced gamer or not. It's accessible and it's lots of fun. It's easy to play. I love it because it doesn't take a lot of brain power. There's some strategy behind it, and yes, there's some luck in the draw or whatever, but it's still, it's easy to play even after you've had a long day where you've used probably most of your brain wattage.
And one of the nice things about that is the game can be very accessible depending on the expansions used, as well as the difficulty level. So there's a lot of flexibility in that range as well, which means that the game is really adaptable for any player. And it says ages 14 and above. You can definitely get away with playing this with probably 10-year-olds. I'd say you're probably stopping about 10, depending on your kid, because eventually you do need the combo, and if they can't see the connections for the combos, it will be very frustrating for them. But beyond that, needing to figure out the combos, it's really easy. Buy all this stuff, smash guy in the face, and that's what you're trying to do.
And so he's led me into my number 3 that I like about this. This game does combos and playing your hand. Some games do it better than others. Some games allow you to call enough that you can really start getting that going. But there are times that you're waiting for that perfect hand that comes out, and you're like, wham! Just like I think from Marvel, but in Marvel specifically, that happens a lot. But also with X-Files, I found it was also possible. So for me, that's just so satisfying and so much fun. It's frustrating when the cards don't come. I mean, it's random, right? So that's gonna move to the negative that we have.
But I don't think this is necessarily the same level of random that we're kind of talking about. It's a little different. But when you're talking about the combos, you're talking about how the system works. It's one of the things where in Big Trouble in Little China, there's a lot of call cards. And if you call your hand right, you can get those big combos. Now, the only negative thing about that, if you don't like the more heads-up aspect of that game, is you can force the other player to call cards they don't want to call.
Yeah, I don't. That's definitely not my favorite version of this game. Jason likes it a lot, but
I like the calling. If this game would let you call even more, I'd be like, yay.
I think Marvel and X-Files definitely are my favorite.
So, negatives.
Well, again, the cards can really not come out well. You've got you've got the different schemes that come out, and they can come out at the wrong time, and you don't have the right cards, and it can just bog you down. And I don't think we've ever lost this game, but
No, we have lost. We got hit with a couple of runaway villains and scheme twists that came all back to back to back. So the randomness is a factor, but different than these games is the fact that this is 3 different piles of cards that you're going to be using. You've got the schemes and master strikes sort of area up there. Then you've got the enemies coming into the city, plus the cards you're trying to acquire for your deck. So, and you can definitely get bogged down in other versions. I think it was worse in X-Files because you would sometimes need to use buying power to defeat certain types of enemies, or you'd be fighting them, and it made sense. One way you're trying to go with political favor, another way you're trying to fight the alien monster of the week. But there was times when we're we have no fight. We just can't beat this guy. And it was very, very frustrating. But it's not the worst down, but it's something to keep in mind that there are multiple sources of randomness, which can throw off games, but that's been very few and far between.
I honestly can't think of a second negative.
I can definitely think of the second negative.
Yeah, you like this game less than I do. Go ahead.
No, it's really simple. And it's one of the reasons why we've got Legendary Marvel Studios. There was a ton of content. Storage is a giant pain in the butt. They've gone with playmats, which are fantastic, but the playmats get rolled up. They're a pain to roll out. They don't always lie flat. And organizing this game, if you've got a giant collection, is a job in and of itself.
That's why it's not my negative, because it's not my job.
Yes, but it's something that I do. I do it with Marvel Champions, and that's a little bit more manageable because I know like what we've got. I've got to organize. It's a very expensive organizer. Clank's back there, but I don't need as much content per se from different boxes. It's really kind of like, here are my heroes, here are my villains, we're good to go. And while you're doing a little bit of that as well with Legendary, you've got the different boards, different cards, different rules apply from like this card implements this rule, which means it could cost something with this. So just making it all work together can be a pain in the butt with a large collection, which is why we have Marvel Studios, and we won't be getting Legendary Marvel, the comic book version, even though it looks good. We've cut too much stuff, and having it on a manageable level is good enough for us for the moment.
So there you have it.
And on that note, we'd like to remind you to
like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell to be notified when we have some new content for you.
And take a look down below in the video description if you'd like to hear Julie and I's thoughts on any of these games. There'll be links down there. Also down there's a link to all of our social media feeds, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. So you should click that link, click those links actually, check that stuff out, and make sure that stay tuned. You might see some of the stuff that's coming up on the channel, or if we're doing any polls, getting a feel as what you'd like to see next on this segment, 3 ups, 2 downs. You should definitely check them out. I've been a little delinquent on the pictures, but I'm trying to get back to that. Hopefully you'll see a bunch of stuff coming in the near future. And then popping up in front of us are going to be links to our previously released videos. In front of me will be our most recent release. In front of Julie, these were your 3 games, really. Take your pick. What do you want there?
Let's put Legendary as one of the first we did.
Yeah, take you back to our review and how to play of Marvel Studios Legendary, the first 10 years. And now we are going to
grab our drink.
Our best friend, fellow gamer. And we will remind you to keep playing games.